So all the parts are finally here for the engine build. We have the new tappets, the inner rotor kit. I went ahead and got a new kickstart. It just looked better. I didn't think painting though the one would work out. New shifter. This is the ignition to go with the inner rotor kit. A brand new cylinder, piston, rings. I heard or read some reviews that when these were packaged, people were getting these and the gaskets were bent that came with the cylinder. Mine were packaged nicely and were fine, but I still have this tusk kit that I'm going to use, so I'm going to just use everything out of there, so I'll keep these for extras or give them to the person who buys the bike. The head has been totally disassembled, cleaned, painted to make it look nice and new. I did go ahead and clean up the ports a little bit. I'll try to take photos, post this in there, just a little bit of cleaning up so there's none of that ugly casting marks in there. So you can see, like I said, I just cleaned up the head a little bit. You gotta be careful to stay away from the valve guide. Make sure you don't hit that if you are using burrs or any carbide burrs or any type of like sanding attachments, to not hit that. You don't want to mess that up. But like I said, I just cleaned it up a little bit. I wish I would have taken some before. The casting marks even on the OEM heads are pretty bad. And here's the intake. Like I said, once again, we just really cleaned it up. Looks a lot better. The exhaust on these engines, the port is so small that you're not going to really be able to do much in those. Top covers have been painted, side covers have been painted, and the cases have been painted. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and get into the assembly. So, I don't want to say issues, but things I did note on installing this inner rotor kit. Obviously, this is a Chinese knockoff of the name brand ones. For the first thing, the O-ring that came with it was already kind of pre-stretched out and was fitting loosely in there. So what I did was I just pulled the one off the OEM one and put it on there. It does look like it's kind of pinching out a little bit, but it's definitely looks to be sealing. So what I'm gonna do is not put the cover on the first time I go to start the bike and put oil in it and make sure there's no leaking. If we have leaks at that point, then we'll worry about that then. The other thing is when putting it on, it's a very tight fit in here. Obviously this is meant to fit the Honda style engines, but the tolerances coming from China probably aren't the best. So it was a little bit tight fitting in there. So actually what I had to do was use two regular M6 bolts that are a little longer to get this started to pull it onto itself. And then the only other thing is that these don't sit as flush in here as the OEM ones, but they are fine. They are snug down. Little things to know. And then also I'm gonna have to kind of shave this down a little bit because this is not as large. All we're gonna do is just cut it a little bit and make it fit. But there you go. I did try to run this 180 degrees, but this isn't long enough, so you do have to run it in this orientation if you're gonna use it on this engine. And when I'm assembling engines, a lot of times I just buy these little 2-stroke oil containers and just pull up in my finger as I'm assembling things. A lot of times when I go to rebuild engines, I usually pretty much use Rotor-Kit 415W40 in all my motorcycles. I think it's cheap, it works, and I never had any issues in any of my bigger bikes. What I'm probably gonna do is let this run a little bit on some oil. So for any of you guys who think this might contaminate the oil, it's probably gonna sit for, like I said, do a 15 to 30 minute break in, then I'm gonna flush it real quick. That way it's good fresh oil. So, but this is what I use for assembling engines. So this is the new cylinder and piston kit I bought. I'm gonna link it in the description. I think it was 30 bucks total to the door, which is nice. So to assemble it, I'm not gonna go in super detail here, but all I did was install the oil scraper ring. The ring with, oh, come on, focus! The silver on the edges is your top ring, and the solid black one is your bottom ring. And when in this orientation, so you're gonna have black and then silver on top. These were a little bit tight when I put them in the cylinder. To measure them, all you do is set them in there. I turn the piston upside down to the scraper ring, push down till it stops. I know it's even in there, and then with a set of feeler gauges, I check the gap. I am doing 20 thousandths for both. Or I'm sorry, not 20 thousandths, 0.2 millimeter, 8 thousandths gap on each ring. Just scrape them down. I'm just using some 220 sandpaper to get them in shape. And all you want to do is make sure you're doing it evenly right here, so you're going down, you're not like beveling it or anything. And so now those are good to go. So now we can go ahead and get the piston on the rod and get the cylinder pushed down onto the block. Personally, I would say the hardest part of redoing one of these engines, if you want to completely disassemble these heads, is removing these valve springs to remove the valves. So what I've done in the past, this works on most CRF50 and KLX 110 style heads. This is a piece of 7/8 just aluminum tubing. What I did was I just cut a little working area. So once you have everything in there, what you do is you just set this in on top of the retainer. This is a 6-inch C-clamp, and it's gonna be really hard to try to demonstrate with one hand. What all you would do is go like this, and then compress the little piece I made down onto the spring holding it down. And then as you see, when this goes down in there, you'll have a working space so you can get your moon clips in. To get it out, you do the same thing, and then I just take a little magnetic pen, and if you have it compressed down and just put it anywhere near this, it'll suck up the moon clips, and then you just slowly release, and that's how you do it. None of the other style of automotive ones will work. Something like this, because there's no way you're going to fit this in the head. I'm sure there's other things out there, and if you want to buy the right tool, there's that, but this is probably a $10 tool I made quite a few years ago, and it's worked me since. So here it is in the vise. I did this just so I can show you what it looks like. As you can see, you have a little bit of working room. I do have the 2 moon clips in. When you're doing this, obviously just keep your fingers from being in there while it's compressed and stuff. Be safe while you're doing it. What I like to do is have a magnetic screwdriver and a little pick. What I do is I put a little bit of oil on the moon clip, put it on the screwdriver so it's magnetic, just set it in there. The first one's really easy because you usually have a lot of room. Put it in there, the oil kind of holds it to the stem of the valve, and then the other one, you just set it in there, and then what I have to do is once it's attached to the stem, I have to just use the pick and kind of push it down into place. And now all I have to do is just release the tension on the spring, and it's set. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the other one off camera, and then we're gonna continue assembly. for the head bolts, I just went up to Home Depot and they sell these. Hopefully you guys can see the part numbers. They're stainless steel, so they won't rust because the OEM ones do tend to rust. That's on top of the head here. And then just saying, got some new stainless steel washers. So another, not want to say issue, but thing I ran into with the inner rotor kit. The inner rotor kits do not have any type of timing marks on them. So what I did was I got the old flywheel. I'm hoping this is gonna work. It's gonna be hard for you guys to see, but made sure that the key is lined up on the inner rotor kit on over top, so there should be, you know, angled up correctly. This isn't perfect science. And then literally took a straight ruler and then went down, as you can see, and made a mark. So we're gonna hope this is gonna work. When I've done these in the past, if you're on top dead center, marked up with a case, the cam sprocket, if you're off by like 1 tooth, it's a good amount of change. So this is within, I would say, like 1 to 2 degrees. It's gonna be really hard to have it off fully timed off. I don't think it's gonna be to the point where I'm gonna hit a valve on a piston. I will turn the motor over by hand, make sure I'm not smacking the piston. And if I start it and it runs kind of bad, then we're probably off and we'll have to do something else. The smart thing would have been to not install this until now. You could have put the old one on the engine, set the timing to the camshaft, and then used it to put the new one on. But we're gonna try this method and hopefully it works. But like I said, I can't see myself being off more than 1 to 2 degrees with this, so hopefully this will work. So the engine's back together. Unfortunately, they did send me the wrong sprocket. This is what it should be with the like 6 cutouts, and then this is kind of the more standard like 28-30 teeth, I believe, sprocket. So this is the wrong sprocket. They had a new one of those. The gasket kit that came with the Tusk top end kit. A lot of these gaskets, either, I don't know if this is kind of like a universal one. There's some other engines that may use these, but I didn't see where these went. And then the other ones where I can see where they were trying to give, like I said, just did not replace, because the ones that are in the engine are more flat and they're not rounded, and these aren't going to sit in there correctly. So I just reused any of those that were an issue. This also didn't come with this one, but the new cylinder would not accept one of these anyway, so that's not a big deal. Engine paint for this, I always use the Duplicolor primer, but when it comes to engine paints, the two I really like are the Duplicolor. Any of them ones, I used the aluminum, and I believe it's cast iron on the engine. God, the camera really doesn't want to focus. There we go. And then the only other paint I really like for engines is VHT. I also really love VHT's roll bar paint. If you're doing any type of frames or anything, the frame on this was done with the VHT roll bar paint, and it comes in a flat black and a gloss black, and both of them go on really well, and then they dry and they're from what all the spray paints I've ever used without using a clear coat, they're the most scratch resistant. So here we have the engine all done. Looks obviously much better than it did when it came out of the bike. The only issues I have right now are there was no hardware with this cover, so I have a chromed out hex, and then one of the bolts that should be in there, so we have to get all matching hardware for this. New shifter looks great, feels really great for the price. The paint came out really good. I really like how everything looks. New Tappet covers. Yeah, really excited how this came out. Can't wait to get in the bike. So here's what we have left of the project bike. The next thing I'm going to do is, once again off camera, because I don't believe spray painting stuff makes great content. So got to get this cleaned up, the swing arm cleaned up, the tires and wheels. I have new tires, I have new wheel bearings. So I'm going to get this all cleaned up and put together. So hopefully next time we'll get it kind of like a rolling chassis setup. The shock, still haven't figured out what I'm gonna do with that, if I'm gonna just get a new spring or if I'm gonna totally replace the shock. And then the front end just really needs to be cleaned up, and I think it's good to go. Waiting on parts, order some more stuff that I know I'm gonna need. Really haven't figured out color of the plastics I want to do in graphics. I'm either gonna do something with like some white plastics, or I'm gonna kind of make it look like a 2022 CRF, even though it's a 2006. So yeah, now we're just waiting on parts. Like I said, a lot of it I don't want to have you guys watch, because I just know watching you guys, or having you guys watch me spray paint stuff, doesn't really make super great content. So it might be a little bit to the next video, but hopefully next video we will get it into like a 80% done